Well, hello again. Jeffrey Cranford with Links Players International. So happy that you would join us today in our little continuing series on kind of the golf swing and the unbelievable analog it is really for our spiritual walk. So we've kind of gone through alignment and grip and posture, and now we're just going to spend one segment on mechanics. Now, in some ways you could say, well, mechanics, you could just, there's thousands and thousands of books written on mechanics and everybody's got their system. But I want to talk a little bit differently about mechanics today and talk about trying to understand, first of all, general concepts of mechanics. So Matt, give us, everybody, you go on tour, you've got Jim Furyk's that are very upright and steep, and then you've got, somebody, Kuchar, who's, swings the club very much around his body. And all those things are different, but what are the core essentials that, just in terms of, well, everybody fundamentally does these things?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about golf, Jeff, is that there's a right way to do it. Yeah. And one of the biggest things I learned early on in my career as instructor, and I learned a lot from the guys down at TPI, Titles Performance Institute, was understanding that each one of us moves a little bit differently.
Right.
Your arms are a little bit longer than mine.
Yeah.
My legs might be a little longer than the next guy's. So how we're built has a lot to do with it. Big impact to do it. Also, what we grew up doing in terms of what sports we played, how active we were, how coordinated we are with certain movements, that all plays into it.
Or if you even grew up in the wind in West Texas, you learned to get the club face differently than if you grew up in somewhere where it never blew and you had to hit it high and you played a Jack Nicklaus course and everything, 3 irons had to come in towering, right?
Absolutely. It was interesting, Jeff, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, got to meet Tom Brady for the first time, who's since become a fairly good friend, and I was watching him hit some balls, and he was complaining about the club face always being wide open and his really cupped right hand at the top of his backswing. And so very quickly I said, hey, show me how you throw a football.
Yeah.
So he went back and went just like this with his right hand.
Interesting.
So I said, hey, we don't want to change anything about that mechanic. We're going to leave that just how it is until you're done playing football, because I wasn't going to be responsible for ruining his football career, that's for sure. Go. So it's just in terms of understanding the real mechanics of how your golf swing needs to work.
Right.
First, you need to understand a little bit about why you do what you do, and also how your body can actually move. If your shoulder's hurt, can you bend over and touch your toes? All those things influence how you're going to be able to manipulate or move the golf club throughout your swing.
Right. So in short, would you say, just fundamentally, everybody's going to turn to some degree? So you got to turn. So if you don't turn at all and you're just an arm swinger, you're not going to generate enough rotational speed. Everybody's got to lever it in some way, and that gets back to grip and things and posture and things like that may affect that. Everybody's got to lever the club a little bit. Levering means to get a little bit of a hinge to add velocity and speed. And then everybody, to some degree, has to swing their arms and sync it up with their body in some way. But beyond that, a lot of those things can look. So first of all, what I was getting from you is you need to understand mechanics in general, and then you need to understand what you do, and then you also need to have some real feedback. So for Tom, you were his feedback, or a coach, or somebody that can mentor you, be feedback. Even a video camera can be feedback.
Absolutely.
So as we look at that, the same is true in the spiritual life. There are basic fundamentals you just can't depart from. Jesus crucified, dead, buried, resurrected. There's just no way around that. That's like your club face at impact. If you get that wrong, the ball's never going to start at target. But even more important, as important is to be able to self-assess. Paul told the Corinthians, Matt, 2 Corinthians chapter 13, he said, test yourselves to see if you're in the faith. Examine yourselves. So really look at your own. You need some positivity. People say all the time, well, yeah, I'm a Christian, been a Christian for a long time. Have you really tested yourself to see? Jesus said you'll know them by their fruits. Do you ever look at the fruit in your own life? How are you connected? Is there the fruit of the Holy Spirit evident in your life? Ask your wife, ask your spouse, ask somebody in your community. And then it says, or do you not recognize this about yourselves, that Jesus Christ is in you, unless you fail the test? So even in the spiritual life, there is a place of self-assessment and constant feedback, which is why we need each other. I need you as a friend. You need me as a friend. part of community so that we can have this constant feedback. So that's kind of how we wanted to approach mechanics. Look, we could get into all kinds of things that he and I love to sit around and talk about, the little nuances. But in general, understand mechanics in general, understand yours, and then get proper feedback and test yourselves to see both in your spiritual walk and in your golf swing. So we'll get into a little bit more next week.